Hello and a warm welcome to all of you who took the time to tune in to this week's webinar. My name is Izaha and I'm a partner of ZICO, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. The topic for today's webinar, brought to you by ZICO Labs and Endeavour, is Startup Series Navigating the Current Climate. As we are all aware, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected many industries and businesses across the world. However, there have been industries that were able to navigate the situation to their advantage and managed to operate their businesses better in a time of crisis. Here with us today, we have two guest speakers who are also Endeavour Malaysia entrepreneurs who will be sharing with us their experience and insights on this topic. So, without further ado, let me introduce our guest speakers. First, we have with us Mr. Goh Chi Hao, who is the co-founder and managing director of the Lorry. Do you want to say hi, Chi Hao?
Hi, hello everyone. It's good to be with everyone today. So, hope we can have some fun today.
Okay, so just a bit of background on the Lorry. In 2014, Chi Hao started the Lorry with Nadia Ashifiq with the objective of connecting professional drivers to B2B logistics and B2C home moving job requests using proprietary tracking, route optimization, and payment technology. Today, the Lorry is the largest on-demand platform for logistics in Malaysia and is present in four countries in Southeast Asia, mainly Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and Indonesia. So next we have with us also Mr. Joe Koo, who is the co-founder and CEO of iStore iSend. Joe, say hi.
Hey, hi guys. Thanks for joining today. Hope to share some stuff with you guys and answer any questions.
Okay. A bit of background about iStore iSend is a full-fledged fulfillment solution provider with a state-of-the-art warehouse management system to automate e-commerce operations. Founded in 2009, they are pioneers in the e-fulfillment market, providing seamless omnichannel experience, allowing sellers to increase their market entry and expand regionally with ease. Ever since the growth in e-marketplaces in Southeast Asia, iStore iSend has also been offering e-enabler services for brands and retailers. The services encompass online setup, onboarding of brands to online e-marketplaces, official online store management, growth and market campaign management, listing, and even customer services. So before we begin today, let me share a bit about the background of this webinar today, basically about ZICO Labs and also about Endeavour Malaysia. ZICO Labs is ZICO Law's regional CSR initiative intended to assist the startup and scale-up ecosystem. This initiative was the brainchild of our regional managing partner, Ms. Hanim Hamzah, in 2019, which is led by myself and also my co-lead, Ms. Tan Hui Lin. Our ZICO Labs model is to collaborate with intermediaries such as Endeavour Malaysia to reach out in helping a wide range of startups and scale-ups with legal systems. If you're interested to know more about this initiative or to work with us, feel free to reach out through LinkedIn or drop us an email at the contact that will accompany the thank you email later on. Okay, lastly, about Endeavour Malaysia. Established in 1997, Endeavour is the leading global high-impact entrepreneurship movement to drive economic growth and job creation by selecting, mentoring, and accelerating the best high-impact entrepreneurs around the world. Headquartered in New York City, Endeavour currently operates 37-plus growth markets throughout Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, the Middle East, and North America. Since launching in its operations in Malaysia, Endeavour actively supports 42 companies in Malaysia across multiple industries such as Holstein Milk, Custom, Fashion Valet, iHandle, The Lorry, and iStore iSend, collectively garnering roughly 1.4 billion in revenue and 2,000 plus jobs since then. Endeavour Malaysia runs two tracks for entrepreneurs, the Endeavour Entrepreneur Track and the Scale Up Endeavour Track. To find out more, you can log on to their website at www.endeavourmalaysia.org. Okay, back to today's program after our short introduction by our sponsors. During the MCO, ZICO Labs had undertaken several initiatives where, among others, what we did was we conducted online virtual legal clinics, and we actually conducted our first webinar titled Regulatory Trends and Opportunities Post-MCO. So as we had institutions such as Futurize and Magic speak then, the idea was to put together a predictive discussion on what the government had in store for startups and scale-ups moving forward post-MCO. what we lacked during that discussion was insights from businesses itself and how they were actually impacted. And given now that some time has lapsed since we have moved into this recovery or RMCO phase, we hopefully can see some light at the end of the tunnel for recovery and growth. Based on this, we hope that this second webinar in bringing an industry perspective with those facing the same storm we call COVID-19 would inspire others to take proactive steps and also draw some inspiration. So the format for this webinar will be a panel discussion where I will ask our guest speakers maybe 4 to 5 questions depending on time. At the end of the session, we will allocate roughly between 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please ask your questions at the Q&A button below and type in your question there. I will select a few questions at the end to ask the speakers, and if we do not have any time, we will share the questions to the speakers where they can address it later on and send it back to the attendees. Alternatively, you can also connect with the speakers on their LinkedIn or to the email that will accompany the thank you email later on. So let's get straight into it, guys. Sorry for the long preliminaries and introduction. Let me just set the stage a bit on what we are at or where we are at right now. As we all know it, the MCO came with a sudden announcement on March 16, where the PM said, look, on March 18, we will go into this MCO phase for initial 2 weeks, basically an overnight announcement. And then from then it was extended every 2 weeks, and we did not know at that point in time how long would it last. It came to PKP, PKPB, and so on, and now we have this RMCO. So my first question, let me address Joe because I can see you bouncing up and down there. What were the challenges that you faced back then? If you could shed some light, was it all that bad for you, or as we see in the news, or did you have it better? Maybe you can share some insights from your organization.
Okay, thank you. I think the beginning stage of MCO, it was quite similar experience. I think I share a lot of similar experience with the rest of the industries. It's a lot of uncertainties, right? So I think no one planned for this. No one had any idea this is going to happen this year. So and it was at the beginning, the first quarter of this year, where I think most companies already set on path and planned and budgeted, the whole year, and then immediately this thing happens. I think the first thing that happened was obviously trying to understand the situation, taking the for management to kind of have an idea and course correct for this year, because we have so many uncertainties. So at the beginning stages was pretty chaotic. A lot of communication was really key, and then we're just digesting information as it develops. And obviously, even back then we were not very clear logistics or e-commerce was it really the approved to be able to function and all that. So obviously those information came only slightly later, but thankfully we have those and we roll with the situation. I think one of the things that was really key for the initial period of MCO was, I think generally because of the uncertainty, a lot of people plan for how we can plan for the worst technically, right? So everyone planned for the worst. And similarly, we did simulation. We planned for the worst. We communicated it very openly to the whole team and the whole company to kind of manage. And if it happens, if A happens, what we're going to do. If B happens, what we're going to do. So at least there was a plan to give people a certainty. But I think one of the things that we didn't do that well, retrospectively, obviously now we are now at I think hopefully the recovery stages. We see the economy kind of bounce back. I would say that Malaysia is doing a pretty good job in the world stage. So we actually we didn't really put a lot of thought on what we will do post or recovery. There were actually what if the scenario was actually positive, right? So we did a lot of preparation for things that to go bad, but actually there were some positive effects to this for us, and I think we were not very equipped to handle those situations, and I think I think that's why, and that's where we are right now. Right now we are grappling with the kind of how can we grow or function after the COVID.
All right, thank you, Joe. Maybe I can also ask this same question to Chi Hao. How did the initial setback or fallout of the COVID-19 or MCO phase affect your business or your company's operations?
Sure. Thank you, Izaha. I think most of us were actually surprised, like you said, because the MCO announcement came very sudden. It was announced on the 16th, and then to be executed on the 18th. And first of all, if to talk about our business, right? A big part of our business, Glory, we actually help people to move house, so people who book Glory online and so on. So the thing is, with MCO, that definitely didn't do us any good because people were not allowed to move around, more so to move house, right? And everyone was so afraid of going out and so on. So the impact was really great. The second vertical that we have for our business is that we also help a lot of businesses to do distribution delivery. And at that time, a lot of businesses were forced to close. So of course, delivery distribution was almost zero, nothing, right? So at the time, I would say it was really, really badly affected. Business was down about 80-90%. And we immediately, the management team immediately had a meeting to think about how do we want to do to survive this crisis. So we come up with a lot of scenario, how bad it could go. And the worst case scenario I remember that we planned for was that we actually planned for a scenario whereby we would have no revenue for the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months. And what would happen? Do we have the cash to sustain? What do we need to do? Let go of some people, pay cut, and so on. So that was the immediate reaction and response that we had. And of course, same like what Joe mentioned earlier, we also communicated with the team, because everything came too sudden, too quick. But of course, in hindsight, now that it wasn't that bad for us, actually. So I would say March was particularly bad, but for us, we actually experienced a very strong rebound after that, in April and onwards. Yeah, so that's for us.
Right. Thank you, Chi Hao, for that. I guess coming back to this question would be the next point, and I'll put this back to Joe because obviously, as you said, as things got bad, you had to come up with a plan. You had to do something. So, what were the kind of things that you did to overcome these challenges? Whether it's a change in your business model, whether it's digitization, automation, whether you had to obtain those MITI approvals that were out there. What were the things that you had to do to sort of to pivot or shift your business into another direction and make it profitable during that period and also after?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that is I think different for us compared to I think some of the other people was actually we had actually a positive fact because we are in we are helping clients digitally get on board into the digital economy. So actually, during the COVID situation, actually, a lot of our clients or a lot of new clients wanted to have a fast and effective way to get onto the digital market very quickly. And so we were kind of beneficiary of it. But I think one of the things that we, so on top, in terms of, the business impact, it's not as bad. But I think one of the things that, because it keeps playing in your head, because everyone's a bit fearful of what's going to happen. So we did what we could. Was the first thing is obviously we kind of announced a hiring freeze. We delay a lot of the bonuses and all these things that we were on this survival mode. We were cutting down on unnecessary or not essential spending for the whole company, right? But we had a time limit onto it. Our thinking or the management thinking was pretty simple. I say, hey, we understood that there could be very bad situation. But we wanted to make sure that we wanted to let the data speak for it instead of us making those decisions, right? Because if we let emotion make this decision, sometimes we might not make the right decision. So we made a conscious decision and say, hey, let's slow things down. Let's pause, right? Let's conserve cash as much as possible and look at data on a week to week. At the start it was week to week, day to day, right? And then month to month. And then we want to look at, and have an idea, if what is the situation out there, right? So I think I was happy. I think I'm very happy to share. I think Malaysia is, because we have presence in Indonesia, in China, in Singapore as well. Malaysia is really not bad right now compared to some of the statistics we're looking at, right? The consumer sentiment is still very strong. I think, maybe we have certain, I think one of the things that we did well was having that moratorium that really created help ease the consumer's burden. I think if you think about it, maybe half of our pay, a big chunk of our salary goes to, mortgages, right? And if you kind of, not having to deal with that for at least, a short-term period actually gives a huge breather, right? And that creates an environment where the consumer is a bit more confident and has access to spare cash. And that really helped. I think generally that's where we see that happening, right? In between, playing out between multiple countries. So that's pretty good. So immediately once we see the data was really positive, we kind of change course and say, hey, you know what? Now we are more focused on what can we do right now to help more people, right? Get digitally transformed. So we prepared for the worst. And we didn't invest in infrastructure growth because it didn't make sense then. We didn't invest in growth back then. So right now there is data is showing that we should be investing into growth, and that's where we are preparing right now for the coming months, right?
All right, thank you, Joe. I think I want to touch on one more thing with you, and you mentioned it early on in your answer. You actually said something about you had the hiring freeze. You were quite honest, transparent with your employees, and I'm just picking on this point that you shared with me the other day. You said that it actually resulted in your organization coming together stronger. I thought that was actually a good story. Maybe you could also tell that to the audience. I remember you telling me that I'm correct, right? That's you, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Thanks for reminding me. So I think this actually, people keep thinking about a negative part of COVID and all that, right? I think one thing great about humanity or people is we are very creative and we can turn a situation into a positive. You think about it, it's a framework, right? So one of the things that positive came out of it was because the need for communication and uncertainty was so great, right? We were doing things like this, like we had like a 100 people town hall on Zoom, right, which is never done before, right? And we had people tuning in from different parts of the country into one big town hall, and communicating, relating it, and the management had to work so much on making sure those things. I think one of the things that we did that really banded the team together was, we had this level of communication which was much more frequent than during normal times. During normal times, you don't really, we don't really think about communication that much. We do the monthly town hall and whatnot, but this one where we had an adversity, we had a common problem for everyone, right? And we made a decision and say, hey, you know what? We had a goal in mind. We say, hey, we wanted to make sure as a company, we were able to not let go of anyone. That was the ultimate goal, when we did all our strategy. We say, hey, what was the best way to not let go of everyone? And we communicated that and said, guys, we're doing all this so that we make sure that we all come out of this, stronger and without having to leave anyone behind. So I think one of the things that was really resounding for me was one of the senior management kind of said, we wanted to make sure that, during this time, we can fast forward maybe a year or 2 years later, and we can tell our friends and family what we have done during this situation. We are not talking about, what has the COVID what has it changed the world? But we wanted to be able to be remembered this year as during this tough time, what have we done to overcome the situation? And this statement was really strong, and it really kind of instilled a lot of thought to a lot of people in the team. So everyone was focusing of what their role was, what they want to be remembering this year by, what I have done. I know it was difficult. It was one, and it's one in about 100 years occurrence. It's not something that happens any day. It's a true challenge. But it is during this time, what have we done personally in a company, in any role to overcome this? And this is what we were thinking about, And this thought and this banding together, this spirit created a unity among the company that is very, very strong even right now. Because I think having this common goal, this common understanding, this common adversity united the company. So I think that was one of the real positive thing that came out as well from this situation.
All right, thank you, Joe. I think you're very right. I mean, one of the things that was very important to do is to ensure that communication line was always open, especially when a time where people were very much disconnected from each other. I think there were also mental health issues, which is quite a serious thing to talk about. But I mean, we're not going to go into that. But secondly, on your point, which is unfortunately, which will become or is the new norm, which is the furloughs, the pay cuts, the retrenchments, and so on. Essentially, it comes back to that kita jaga kita phrase. People. I do think it's true to some extent, because we do want to help each other. I mean, as much as you have your own overheads and cash flows and commitments, but you still want to help out other people as much as you can. On that note, what do you think, Shiha? What did you guys do at the lorry? I mean, in terms of managing your business or sort of pivoting it during this MCO phase? What did you guys do at your company?
Yep. So first, we immediately thought about the basics of business, right? So it's always about either higher sales or lower cost, right? In order to survive. And at the time, as you know, sales was almost down the drain. As I mentioned, 80-90% down, right? So we have what we have there is that we have a lot of driver partners with us, right? Van drivers, lorry drivers, pickup truck drivers. So we were thinking, how do we make use of this capacity that we have built over the years, right? They are just sitting there, not doing anything right now. So with a digital platform that we already have that allows people to make a booking online, right? Before this, to book lorry, to book van, right? We immediately thought about during the MCO, what was needed the most. So we saw the spike in food delivery. We saw the spike in grocery delivery as well. So a lot of people are afraid to go to the supermarket, would like to order grocery. So immediately we put together a special task force, the product team, tech guys, marketing guys, right, to come up with a very simple a few steps that allow people to book grocery delivery online, right? I think we came out with a product within like a week, right? And immediately we actually saw a good demand, right? That people actually need that service to help them to go to the supermarket, to buy something and deliver to them. So that was one of the things that we did on the revenue side, right? In order to keep these drivers busy, also to generate a little bit of income, to continue paying salary to our guys, right? Without having to let go of anyone. That is one of the pivot that we did. But of course, fast forward to today, that is not so much of a story anymore, because now with RMCO, people are allowed to go out, people are keen to go out, right, instead of being locked down at home, right? So on the cost side of things, we immediately communicated with the whole team, 4 countries, right? Had a town hall via Zoom as well. to let them know what we are experiencing and how much we need to save in terms of expenses and costs in order to survive this crisis. I mean, until today, we are still uncertain how long this would go on for, right? So at the time, we actually did a pay cut, company-wide pay cut, with the management and the founders taking a much higher percentage than the guys, after communicating properly to the guys, actually it came to our surprise that most of them were actually, will be first, right, and say that yes, we want to go through this with the company. We would take some damage right now, sacrifice right now, and go through with the company. So with that, and also a significant cut in terms of marketing costs, because at that point in time, no matter how much you market, I guess business is down anyway, right? So salary and marketing being the top two a cost in the company, we managed to significantly reduce it. I think it helped us a lot, in March and April, and that's what we did, in the initial phase, that really helped us and go through the tough time.
Okay, thank you, Chi Hao. I think one of the things you said was, just to recap, the willingness of your employees, and actually, I've seen that in some businesses as well. They close ranks to sort of want to help out the organization as well. I guess that's better than the alternative, which is retrenchment. But I really like Joe's point where it actually made the team closer, made the team even stronger, going forward. The second point you also touched upon was the fact that you moved into food delivery, which also moves nicely to my next question. I think one of the things that we spoke about quite extensively on our last webinar was opportunity areas. And one of that was the growth of e-commerce, and obviously the growth of people delivering food. I mean, obviously now, because a lot of organizations are starting this work from home, program or option and whatnot. So I'll ask Joe first. I mean, and what do you think? The current regulatory framework or ecosystem, does it actually support the growth of your business right now in terms of what you want to do, in terms of where you want to go, and how do you expand, or what are your comments on that?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think from opportunities, right? If we're talking about opportunities, and if there was any roadblocks to that opportunities, right? I think generally well received. I think e-commerce is on the rise. I think we actually I just want to share with you one of the things that I've seen resiliency in a lot of the local entrepreneurs. So because of our business, I have the good fortune to work with a lot of very successful and passionate entrepreneurs. So one of it I just wanted to share is recently we launched a project with one of the large book reseller company. So right, they are it's no secret, so I can just kind of say it out. We work with Big Bad Wolf, right, and Book Access. For those Malaysians who are tuning in, I'm sure you guys have heard about buying the 24 hours exhibition and all that, right? So I think one of the things that happened here was we talked to the entrepreneurs, the founders themselves. We know each other quite well, and we had this common goal, right? Is to help overcome the situation of COVID-19. And one of the things that they had to do, because they were relying on retail book sales, offline book sales quite a bit, was how do we transition into online within a very short amount of time, right? So basically every day or every week that we delay that transformation will be lost opportunity, loss of revenue, while the cost structure is still very high, right? So we had to work together. We had to become very creative to kind of get this project launched very, very soon. And there were a lot of creativity and a lot of ways that people will come out with to transform, to survive, to thrive. And this is not only just isolated cases. I've seen, and I work with we've worked with so many local brands as well. a lot of them has seen really strong, creativity, and this is where I think I will give a heads up to the Malaysia spirit, or the businessman spirit, or entrepreneurship spirit, right? Just to get things done, and regardless of regulation, if so far there was not much big regulation issues. I think it was quite okay. I think we were just trying to, within the regulation limit, how do we become creative and overcome that, and that really was really showing during this period. A lot of our clients, pivoted, changed, transformed, became so creative, and I think that some of them are really actually reaping the benefits even right now today as we speak. As we move away, those creativity stick, and it became a standard feature for the company, right? That this is how it goes. And I had the good fortunate, obviously, to also visit them, the team. It's like a company is not just one guy, not just an entrepreneur, it's the team, right? So when we meet the whole team, right, you could see the energy. Like everyone's trying to save the company. Everyone's trying to make this work. There was no, pushback and say, "Hey, aku tak mau buat ni susah ni." No, no such thing, because everyone was in the spirit and say, "Hey, this is tough. This is going to be difficult. Let's do it. No excuses. How can we?" And those energy and those, attitude was really, I think, one of the best side of best thing to see as a business people, as an entrepreneur, as anyone, right? It's really it's a really positive thing.
Right. Thanks, Joe. Can I just pick up one more point based on what you were talking about? Because you were saying one of your clients or partnerships is with Big Bad Wolf. I mean, the distribution of books. I also noticed that you also cut across so many industries, right? You also do pharma and whatnot. Maybe you just want to touch on those. There's no exclusivity in terms of any particular sector. You do so many industries, right?
Yeah. So our mission is to help businesses digitally transform, right? Regardless of where you are. Where we are good at is the operational bit, the supply chain bit, the back end. This is our expertise, right? How do you get to e-commerce quickly, regardless of industry? So we obviously very passionate about helping anyone, any sizes. So recently we went into also, I think you've probably heard about, we signed an MOU with one of the biggest pharma company in Malaysia, ZICO Pharma, to kind of help and to go into collaborative mode, right? To get brands that they represent as well, and medical supplies online, because right now that is the preferred way of consuming products, right? So that is also one thing that we had to do. I was very happy to meet the team at ZICO Pharma. They were very forward thinking. They were thinking about how do we tap into this as well. So in fact, I mean, medical is one of it, and the other one is also we also work with one of the biggest home improvement retailer, Mr. DIY in Malaysia, right? So we something really cool happened during that was so obviously no one planned for a sudden increase in e-commerce activity, right? So when we did the project with Mr. DIY, the idea was to create a process and warehouse that were able to output X units a day. When COVID-19 happened, immediately that number jumped 10 times. And it was so crazy to the point that we were having constant conference call trying to resolve this, and you could see like this was serious, right? The founders, the senior management, everyone, all hands on deck, right? Which is very rare, right? Because it's rare to have everyone involved, but it was so dire that they needed to kind of have a handle on this situation. That we had daily conference call to resolve this, and one of the ideas we had was to immediately increase the capacity by creating another warehouse out of nowhere, and obviously warehouse doesn't grow on trees, right? So we had to increase that output over a very short amount of time, and again creativity comes in, right? So this is where the get things done attitude comes in, and one of the things that we've decided, and if you notice, for a while short period of time, DIY website was only selling a few things, which was hand sanitizers, masks, and all these other things, because they were the necessary things. And if we only had, 3x output, that's it. We want to focus on the things that really would benefit the society as a whole, that people really needed. So the whole team, including DIY, they made the decision, say, hey, let's focus on these things, right? So forget about hammers for a while. Forget about your light bulbs for a while. Let's keep the disease under control. Let's just sell these things, get these things in the hands of the consumers, and it was very successful. I think we distributed quite a lot of, I can't remember, maybe a few 100,000 of this across Southeast Asia, which is pretty cool. So that's one thing that also happened, right? So medical, home improvement. We also have the fortunate, because we also have a footprint in Indonesia. We were also part of a government initiative in Indonesia, Project Bansos, which is to distribute rice and commodities to people in need during the COVID situation. So during a very short amount of time. So this is happening across multiple countries everywhere, because this is a global impact, right? So you can imagine, like, the first 1 month was super chaotic. Everyone's trying to make things work, right? So the Indonesia team was thinking, how can we distribute 1 million packages of rice within a very short amount of time? And obviously the current process would not facilitate that, because we never planned for that. How do we get all this up within a very short amount of time? And all these things came together, and this is where the team spirit, the economy, the resiliency of human spirit and entrepreneurship came in and really jived nicely. And we are very happy to be able to deliver on all this, right? And I just wanted to share this because it's not all doom and gloom about COVID-19. It's also about positive change, opportunity, and it is as bad as you think about it. But if you have a positive mindset on how to tackle this issue, it can change, and it could be one of the positive things that can happen to your industry as well.
Thank you, Joe. I think I should have invested in a hand sanitizer and face mask factory. But I think, the point that we can take away from that is that there are fortunate opportunities like yourself, like the collaboration that you got into, and you said no one would have predicted the sudden boom or rise in e-commerce overnight, basically because of the COVID-19 situation. Another thing that I wanted to pick up on is also the fact that you talked about your regional presence. And, I think also this goes nicely to the next question, which I'm going to pose to Chi Hao. Because you mentioned earlier that, based on your businesses in the region, you said, hey, Malaysia is not doing too bad, right? That's what you said. So Chi Hao, since you also have presence in 4 countries, what is the impact on the MCOs in the other countries in your businesses? Is it similar, or does Malaysia fare better in that sense?
At the very beginning stage, I think it was just all uncertainty in all countries, right? We don't know how long this would last and things like that. But as time goes on, actually, I would say in Malaysia we are doing much better. We started our MCO, of course, 18 March in the first phase and all. I can't remember the exact date, but I remember Thailand and Indonesia, which we have presence as well, actually started much later. And for that, their initial announcement was like for 1 whole month or something. Which I would say, if you ask me to compare, which country has the worst impact and all, I would say during the initial lockdown period, the MCO, or whatever they call it, in Singapore they call it circuit breaker, right? I think the impact was really, really significant in the first stage because of the uncertainty. Everyone was afraid. But as we move on, I think we can see that the government actually plays a very important role. And being a Malaysian, I'm actually very proud of what the government has done so far. I think we have brought the numbers under control. Flatten the curve. Past few weeks we even have very low single digit numbers for days. So I think that has actually helped the recovery of the economy in a sense, right, compared to other countries. And right now, I would say, at this moment in time, I would say our Malaysia business actually has bounced back much stronger compared to our other countries that we are in, right? Indonesia and Thailand, yeah.
All right, good. So I guess what they say in the news that Malaysia is sort of the leader in handling the COVID situation is true. I mean, based on your experience looking into the region and the other countries, we have sort of, recovered better. We've handled it better. And, we've also starting to move into a better recovery phase, I would think so. So I think if this goes on to my next question, maybe you can also answer that first. What do you think in terms of the government initiatives to help out the SMEs? What do you think, how helpful these initiatives are in terms of the Prihatin stimulus package, in terms of the Penjana stimulus package? There's a talk about SME funding, SME assistance. There's a National Technology Innovation Sandbox for new regulation, new innovations that can, come into disruptive regulatory framework. So there's a lot of things that are announced by government. How do you see it translated to you as a entrepreneur, as a SME, as a company? Do you find that helpful?
I think the initiatives brought forward by the government have been very, very helpful, to be honest. From a business owner perspective, the three things that really help us a lot. Number one is that the wage subsidy that they have introduced, right, for those who earn less than 4,000, right, they subsidize up to a certain percentage, right. Number two is the SRF fund, right, the loan. So the SRF loan, I would say, really helped the SMEs, right, in terms of helping us to survive this very uncertain period, So as a beneficiary ourselves, we have also applied for it and got it already, which helped us a lot during this tough period where, business is down and things like that. And the third one, I would say, of course, is the moratorium that really helped the general public, right? The loan holiday, you don't have to pay, your mortgage and car loan for 6 months, because I would say at this point in time, there are a lot of employees taking pay cut, and also some of them unfortunately lost their job, right? So with this moratorium, I would say it has eased a lot of pressure off their shoulders in terms of their financial commitment. So if without all this, if without the wage subsidy, without the SRF loan, I would say even for us, right, I can imagine we probably had to let go of some people, had to do even more severe pay cut. But because of this subsidy, everybody actually took lesser, because then we calculate back to the budget that we want to save, right? It actually helped a lot, right? And the loan as well. So I think the initiatives brought forward by the government have been very, very, very benefiting for the SMEs at least. Yeah, that's my point of view. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chi Hao. I think that's a very good point, especially on the moratorium, which I will touch on in a bit. I just want to highlight to the participants out there, if you have any questions, can you send it into the Q&A below, and don't WhatsApp me because it's hard for me to read it out later. So you guys just put the question in the Q&A. I'll read it out later. So going back to Joe, I just want to pick up on the same question, but I just want to be the devil's advocate here. I really like the point about the moratorium. I think that's one that is not specific to SMEs. That's, it covers everyone in general. But do you think that sort of gives a false impression of cash flow, because that's just a deferred kind of liability or deferred debt. What do you think about that? And the second question I would have related to that is just picking up on what Chihao said is, do you think the government can do more? Is there something else that you would expect in terms of the, under the Penjana or under the Prihatin that would help out, SMEs per se?
Okay. Yeah, I think obviously everyone, I spoke about this, how the moratorium really helped, boost consumer confidence and help ease a lot of things. I think from just a layman point of view, everyone has mortgages to pay. Not having that pressure is great. But if you think about it, we do, this is a artificial situation, right? This is an artificial environment. You do have to pay your mortgage one day, right? So that day is coming soon. So it's September. It's going to be just around the corner, and I think you'll start to see pressure mounting, right? And especially if people who have pay cut and lost their jobs, unfortunately, those pressure is even more real, right? So what it gave us is just a short, a good time to breathe, but we do still have to act on it. If we chose not to act on it during this, breather space, then we would unfortunately be facing that reality without much preparation. So I think that is one thing that I do fear. I do fear have this overhang worry for Malaysia as a whole. Because we have this moratorium thing. It's going to end soon. What's going to happen after that? Right. So it is something that we are looking closely again, looking at the data, right, to see where it comes, right. So I guess if I don't know, this is where I think the government would need to have a more study on this, right. They should have an overview on what's happening and the amount of impact that it will take. Take it very seriously on the moratorium thing, because it's one of the better things that happen. So if we need to have more leeway on that, maybe we should, instead of having a hard fall, give it a bit more time to slow down that fall. So that's how think funny enough, I saw a video about how to survive a plane crash. Like if you jump down, the impact, the advice is try to put as much time between the impact and you, so that you have time to react, right? So I think that's the same thing, right? It's a hard fall. If we just fall flat, it's probably pretty bad. But if we have more time to think and to maneuver, I think that will be great. So that, I think that's one of the thoughts about moratorium here for me. And the second part is obviously the Penjana, and obviously all these initiatives is great initiatives, right? But I think the government is also working very hard to try to get through all the applicants, right? There's so many people to help, and I'm sure the government would not, ready to get such a huge application, just like anyone. No one planned for this. So we're trying to deal with it, I guess, as best we can. So giving it more time for those initiatives to play out is also, I think, one of the things, right? Maybe we are fortunate enough to get our application through early on, but some people will still be waiting and queuing, right? And I've heard stories of some of my friends that has applied and still not gotten, the stuff, the application kind of went through. So I think we need to give it more time for the system to digest. Like, just imagine a crowd running towards. There is a queue. We have to wait for it. If we are lucky enough to be in front, sure, but some people are not as lucky. We might be wise to give it more time for them to get there. So I think that's one thing that I think about that quite a bit.
Thank you, Joe. I think I like your hard fall analogy. I think there needs to be a better transition before it's pulled back, and I think the government is looking into whether they want to extend it. I think there's been some discussions on that topic right now, and then I think on the initiatives, you're completely right. I think there's a lot of issues in terms of people, in terms of dispersing and people actually being entitled or people claiming. I won't identify which ones, but some are not feasible or workable right now. So the government is actually looking into those things. Okay, which moves us to our last question. I think time has just set up quite nicely. Before we wrap up the panel discussion, the last question I have for the both of you I guess Joe, Chihao, you're sitting there already. Would be what would be your message to the other businesses or SMEs out there? I know you've had that opportunity to grow, to pivot, to move into other areas as well during the MCO. So, what would be your takeaway to them right now?
I think for me is that we have to always be prepared for the surprises. Just like this crisis, is unprecedented. Nobody expected it, right? And sometimes we cannot be so hard-headed, cannot be so stubborn, right? We got to do what we got to do to survive, whatever it is. I've seen different businesses doing things that are very different from their core business, right? In order to survive. So I think really this crisis, this pandemic, really gives us the opportunity, right, to test us whether how willing are we to change, sometimes, right? Because as people say, times are changing. Sometimes the old method doesn't work anymore. So I think be very very agile, very very flexible in that. Be prepared for changes, and also I think as Joe mentioned earlier as well, I think communication is very important. Make sure that if you have decided, you are the management or the owner of the company, if you have decided to pivot on your business, make sure it is communicated very well, rather than your team members having doubt and not sure what is happening. So I think that is very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Chihao. That's a good point. I think like you said, nobody could have foreseen this, but essentially, I guess the message you are trying to send is to future-proof your organization for the future, and take into account these eventualities or possibilities moving forward. And I know right now people are talking about the MCO coming back, or wave two. So of the COVID-19. So, we might just have to be mindful about that in the foreseeable future. So same question to Joe. What's your last message to everyone out there in terms of, the way forward?
The way forward is, I think what we've learned together is how we can overcome, and I've seen it firsthand, how we can overcome adversity, right? And to stick with this mentality that we will come out of this no matter what, right? I think it is a problem. It is a huge problem. But as long as we put our minds and thoughts and ability to it, we can be overcoming any obstacle, right? So that is one of the things that never let the environment push you to surrender. We will overcome this, and the fighting spirit will be there, strong, and we can overcome it together, right? Obviously, reach out to help, because you're not alone, especially in a global pandemic. No one's alone, right? We are facing this all together. And community, and that's where we're part of the Endeavor network, was really helpful, right? The network really created this support system, and there were so many articles and support that went through the network to kind of everyone was shouting, all the mentors, everyone was saying, reach out for advice, reach out, we'll help you. We've seen some of the mentors have done this a few times, the Asian financial crisis and all that. Obviously not as severe as this, but they had like nuggets of wisdom that we can utilize as well. So I think that was really, really impressive, right? Having not understanding that you are not alone, reaching out to the people around you, your friends, your family. Like if you're a family setting, I'm sure your brothers and sisters are also in this together. No one's really excluded from this event, right? Having to work together, even things change, right? Even the family settings change. Right now, I'm speaking to you from my home. At the same time, my brother's upstairs, also doing his own thing, and we've come together and say, hey, let's schedule how we're going to use the internet, how we're going to schedule, do this and that, right? So these are things that we will overcome it, right? So, reach out, talk about it. The support is always there. It is affecting everyone. It's not just you alone. Let's make it happen together. So I just want to share another story. I had the logistics community is pretty tight. Like Chi Hao and all, there's very like just a few of us entrepreneurs that in logistics, right? So I think one of the things that we keep close communication with is how we can help each other, right? So we also spoke with another player called Zoom. We also spoke with another player called Easy Parcel, if you heard about them. So we've tried to source things together. So one of the things that we did was like, hey, we need masks and sanitizers at the very beginning, very early, before we had like a big shortage on these things. We reach out and say, hey, do you have ability to get this? Let's get this together, right? So tap into those, right? So moving forward, knowing that you are not alone, reach out to your community, reach out to your people, reach out to your network, reach out to the government. Never be afraid to ask, because you are not alone in this. Having that spirit to not give up, to overcome it, I think that's the two things that we can, moving forward, that should be it.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I think that's a very good point. I mean, banding together, coming together, understanding that you are not alone in this. While you are on the line, let me just take, maybe I'll just ask two very quick questions that I have here. I'll ask you one, I'll ask one to Chi Hao. So the first one is, do you think now is the right time to do a startup, or to open or set up a startup, given the uncertainty of COVID-19?
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously, from a very practical point of view, if you're trying to raise fund right now for a fresh new idea, right, to do a startup, I think the fund availability is coming back, right? If you ask this question about 3 months back, no one's really doing it because no one's really clear what's going to happen, right? But now it comes, but it's very selected in the industries that they feel are clear positive affected by this, right? So if your startup ideas are based around medical, all these things, great, right? But if your startup ideas around maybe travel, it will be quite tricky, right? Unless you have an idea to do virtual travel somehow, which is also a great idea, right? So so that's my point, right? So it is really very specific. But if you really have, so don't start my general advice is don't start a startup just because you have an idea, right? I think start a startup, start a business if you really have passion about that thing that you want to do. You're not doing this because you have a great idea, because this great idea is going to help do something, right? And that something should always be the North Star of your company, right? So like our company is about helping people digitally transform. That's always our guide, right? That is behind why you do things, right? You could be a small company, you could be a big company, but if you don't have the why you're doing it, I think it's going to be very difficult, right? But if you constantly have the why, and the why is strong enough, regardless of the environment, you will do it.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Thank you for that. And I have one more question. I'll pass this to Chi Hao. How do you keep your employees motivated during a time of crisis? I mean, they're concerned with KPIs and whatnot, but how do you manage that and keep them motivated that there'll be no more pay cuts, they won't get retrenched and so on? So how do you manage that as in your organization?
Yeah, I think this is definitely a very, very tough thing to do, right? Because no matter what you say, what you do, when you tell people, hey, we got to all go through a pay cut together, morale is definitely affected. So a few things is that we chose to lead by example. So we told them that, hey guys, we are doing this pay cut not for fun. We are doing this really to survive this crisis and come back stronger as a company, right? And we have no choice. Otherwise, we have to let go of a lot of people. So I know that you may have to take pay cut, but as the management, as the founder of the company, I would take at least double of what you're taking. If you're taking 20% pay cut, I'll take 40. If you're taking 30, I take 60. So I think leading by example is very important, and also give people at least some assurance, right? So yes, pay cut, okay, but for how long? And would there be a second round? Would there, go on indefinitely, right? So for us, we have spelled out the scenario very clearly that we were going to do a maximum of 6 months, right, at X% of your pay, right? So we chose to do cut deep once rather than cut many times, right? So that would definitely impact morale a lot. If I tell you, oh, this month we cut 10%, okay, next month come, I say, oh, sorry guys, the situation is still very bad, we should do 20%, 30%, right? So people will be thinking like, wow, is the company in some deep trouble, right? Things like that. So we give a very, very firm plan that we are going to cut for this number of months for how many percent. And if things do turn around, we will actually shorten the period, right? So from 6 months to less months. So for us, right now is that business is picking up again. So we actually plan to shorten the whole period from 6 months to actually, I think it will be like 4 months, right? So and we do try to think of ways to how to compensate the employees that have gone through these tough times with us, right? If we do continue to do well, we try to give back some, whether it's some bonus or incentive, things like that. So I think communication and also a firm plan is very important, right? To really keep them motivated. I know whatever you say, when you take away, a portion of people's pay, definitely morale is no way that I would say it's not going to be impacted, but we are trying to reduce it.
Thank you so much, Chi Hao, for that. I completely agree with you. I think leading by example is a fantastic way to galvanize your moral and spirit. I think not necessarily all the time that is translated to employees, because I'm pretty sure the management won't say like, hey, I took 80% or so, because you won't tell them that directly, but it's a good way to make sure that everyone is in the same boat. On the second point, I also agree with you that the communication plan needs to be there. I mean, people need to know that, if you did below certain numbers, then there will be consequences, and people need to have that expectation in mind, rather than, suddenly it just happens next month or the month after without any, warning or alarm. So I think both of you actually talked about that point in being transparent and upfront in terms of the cash flow of the organization. So actually that brings us to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much to both of you. I owe you a nasi lemak, not a real one, not a virtual one. So probably go out sometime. I'll contact you. For everyone else, thank you for attending this session. We hope you enjoyed the session and the insights shared by these two guest speakers. The recording of this webinar will be sent to you as part of our thank you email and will be available on our ZICO website. So last, before I sign off, do join us for our next week's WWW webinar, which is titled Malaysian Real Estate in the COVID-19 Era, Crash Landing or Cash Landing on the 29th of July, where the speakers will be discussing about Malaysia's real estate legal framework, government initiatives to boost home ownership, signing contracts during the lockdown period, recent court rulings, and also Malaysia's property markets and trends post-COVID-19. So this will be by the real estate team. Invitations will be sent out soon to those who have subscribed to our mailing list. So please keep an eye out for them. Alternatively, you can also register for the webinar through the events section on the ZICO website or through our LinkedIn page. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time. Okay, bye.